put my big girl panties on, and I began to really dig deeply into how I had gotten thwarted, which most of us do. I will say 95% of us do not get to adulthood with adult social emotional skills. So I had gotten stuck probably around 4 or 5 myself, right, emotionally, because the gold standard in our culture is behavior. So I started recognizing when we're always trying to control behavior, we don't understand that behavior is driven by the social emotional, right? So I began to recognize that every single behavior was appropriate, right? I mean, not appropriate, was wisdom based, right? Because if my child perceived that she was in danger, it was a very wise thing to hit me or bite me, right? Because she was perceiving that I was in danger. So if she was really in danger, I would want her to bite or hit someone. So I began to see the intelligence in all behavior instead of the badness in behavior, right? Because most of the behaviors you're probably all wanting to go away, right? They are extremely intelligent behaviors if your child was actually in a dangerous situation. Same for you. If I was really in a dangerous situation, it would be really smart to scream and yell at the person to get them to back off or to get them to do what I wanted them to do, right? So all of my work began to get based in kindness towards myself and to begin to recognize what was driving my behavior more than trying to control my behavior. So Pooja, once my perception began to shift, and I call it, if my mind is the arbitrator of my perception, I'm going to see right and wrong in behavior. I'm going to see it as good and bad because we're trained that way, right? We were all conditioned to believe that hitting is bad. But if your child was being attacked by someone and they started hitting them, would you think it was bad? No, right? You would be so excited, right? So I didn't want to take away all my daughters. She was a hitter, right? And people would say, tell her she can't hit. And I would go, she just did. What do you mean tell her she can't hit? She just did. I wanted to know why she hit. And it was because I was the threat, right? I was pushing her, I was pulling her, I was forcing her, I had an agenda. So she perceived a threat, so she hit it, right? Now, of course, I wasn't actually feeling like I was dangerous. I thought I was just a good mother, telling my child what to do. But when I started recognizing that, oh, she's not just hitting me, there's something going on in her brain that is experiencing a signal that's going danger, danger, danger. So intelligent behavior would say hit. I'm not saying it's appropriate, but it's intelligent, right? Mm-hmm. So once I began to notice that, then I started noticing that all my behaviors were intelligent. Whoops.
Sorry about that.
You got that one? That's all right. But I started noticing that all my behaviors were intelligent. They weren't appropriate for an adult because I'm an adult. So it wasn't appropriate to scream and yell at my daughter and, run around like a screaming banshee when I was freaked out. They weren't appropriate for my adult stance. But from where my brain perceived that I was in danger when my child wouldn't listen to me, when she wouldn't do what I say, when she wouldn't get in the car seat, when she wouldn't hurry up because I needed to get out the door, when my brain perceived danger, my behavior was intelligent, right? Not appropriate though, because my perception, I was arbitrating, my perception was being arbitrated through my mind, which says a child should listen. A child should do exactly what I say when I say it. A child should. It's a lot of our parenting template is in our minds, right? So I began to arbitrate my perception through my heart. Okay, I want everybody to put your hand on your heart for a moment and just take a deep breath. So the heart is unconditional. The heart receives everything. It's non-judgmental, right? So there's space in the heart for you. I know all of you. I've got so many questions here. I can feel the suffering right now, the intensity of COVID, and not knowing what to do, and trying to control, and trying to get your kids to do homework, and trying to get your kids to, get off the computer. I mean, it's just like, oh, all right. The mind, talk about feeling threatened, right? Isn't everybody just like over your edge right now? Raise your hand if you're feeling over your edge, right? And so your brain's just going, danger, 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 danger. So what do we do when we feel we're in danger? Pooja, when your brain says danger, what do you
Your
do?
adrenaline kicks in. Yeah. And you
Yeah. And then you try to control, you yell, you do all these things. And then afterwards, how do you feel?
Exhausted and not so good.
You feel guilt, you feel shame, because you look down, you go, oh my God, I'm in an adult body. Why was I acting like a 4-year-old? Right? And so it's so painful. And then we beat ourselves up and we say, okay, tomorrow it's going to be different. How many people do that? You wake up in the morning, you say, today I am not going to yell at my kid. I am not going to do it. I'm going to be so happy and alive. And by 10 o'clock, what's happening? And it just becomes this endless loop, right? This endless loop of acting out, beating up, saying I'm going to do better, and then acting out again. So I had this going on, and it was so painful because I had a fantasy. Anybody here have a fantasy of how good a mother you were going to be, your dad? And how amazing, how conscious, how loving, how great. Well, the bottom line was that meant my daughter had to be kind and loving and good and well behaved. She didn't get the memo, right? She didn't get that memo that said she was coming down here to make me look good, right? I'm still mad at her about that. Right? And the beauty of that was, if anybody can turn your phone on mute, that'd be great. But the beauty of that is that my daughter woke me up. My daughter, because she wasn't a child. So anybody here got a really easy child that does everything you say, when you say, how you want it to say, right? Oh, aren't they wonderful? And then you have another one, probably the other side, that never does what you want, never says anything. I guarantee they're the ones that are going to wake you up. Okay. The easy ones are wonderful. God bless you if you got one. Right. It's nice to have that balance. But I tell you, the ones that didn't get the memo are going to wake you up to your feelings, to how you have not had the opportunity to grow yourself up. Right. So I kind of got long-winded. See, I asked you to be on here to ask me questions, and then I just go.
No, that was so. I mean, I think that's such a like refreshing perspective, and certainly, there's so much introspection that clearly went into that in terms of, you were trying to control this thing on the outside, but actually you were dealing with those same feelings yourself. And so I guess, and a lot of the parents who submitted questions kind of had similar questions about had questions that were specific to behaviors. So like that specific behaviors do provoke big emotions like lying or saying no or aggression. And so I guess what's the next step? So now you're awakened, that this is all in your head, but it's still how do you get past your mind?
Yes.
And how do you kind of oh shoot.
You're good. We can still hear you.
Oh, okay. I was like,
So
is my
watch your
Wi-Fi
words.
again? But okay. Basically yeah. So how do you get past your mind? How do you kind of think from your heart? Like what you were saying, are there ways that you found to actually do that well?
Absolutely. And so everyone knows the mind is beautiful. So we don't have to get past it. We just want to put the heart as the master. Okay. Right now, for most of you in our traditional parent, conditioned was taught to you, right? So everything you know about parenting was either done to you, you watched your parents, but you learned up here, you make conclusions, right? Or you've read books, right? Or you've listened to an expert. So everything I found up here wasn't totally mine. I mean, I might have agreed with some of it, but it wasn't really totally from my wisdom. So what I began to find was, as painful as this is to hear, and it will be very painful, that my feelings were the greater gift for me. They were the greater teacher than my mind, right? And that's really hard to hear, because most of us were taught, especially when we felt powerless, helpless, rejected, abandoned, and we acted those out by hitting, biting, controlling, having a tantrum. Most of us learned we got consequence, we got punished, we were told we were mean, we were bad, we were rude. So when those feelings started to arise again in me as a child, I organized my whole life not to ever feel them, right? By not getting married, by keeping a distance. But here I am with like I said, a 4-year-old, and every other minute I felt powerless. Anybody feel powerless here with your 4-year-old, right? I felt like I was walking on eggshells. I felt like I was being held hostage. I felt rejected every other minute, because all I wanted to do was love her, right? I just wanted to take care of her. I just wanted to do what was best for her. And no, 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 no. I have a defiant, resistant child, thank God, right? So it was very, very challenging, because I kept wanting to go up to my mind. Everybody here, I want you to think about this. When you have those feelings, you want to go up to your mind to look for a solution to not feeling them. Okay, that's what happened, Pooja. It's like you feel powerless. Nobody wants to feel powerless. So you go up into your mind, and your mind will say, I need to control that thing out there that made me feel powerless. That's what we believe. We believe our child made us feel powerless. So the mind goes, if that out there made me feel powerless, the way to work with that is to get that to stop, to control that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But the truth is that out there does not make you feel powerless. It triggers feelings of powerlessness that you've had since you were a little child. Right. Mm-hmm. But you probably worked really hard not to ever feel it. I worked really hard to not feel rejected and abandoned. I just rejected and abandoned everybody else. That was how I did it. It's like anybody, I started feeling that, I was like, okay, I'm out of here. Nope, I'm done. Excuse me. Nope, I don't like you anymore. Bye, I'm out. Right? So I wasn't going to leave my daughter. Okay, here I was stuck. I closed all the doors. My daughter actually was abandoned and rejected. I adopted my daughter. So of course she had that core vulnerability also. Yeah. So, right. So I call it like throwing the hot potato. Anything.
Oh, sorry. Leslie, you've been muted.
Okay.
Okay, sorry.
Just shut me up.
I apologize. I was muting someone else and then got a little trigger happy.
It's okay.
Sorry. So
I don't like you. I don't like you. I'm leaving. Bye.
But yeah, see, so yeah. I mean, immediately felt like no.
But it worked really well. See, she's never gonna mute me again. See, it worked really well.
You've controlled me.
So let's go back to that. I wanted to go back to that. Your child, any feeling that they have, most likely they're going to throw it to you. If they're feeling powerless, they're going to throw you the hot potato. You're going to feel powerless. They feel rejected, they're going to throw you that. So my daughter was throwing me these feelings of rejection all the time, right? And I didn't know what to do, right? So I started acting like a rejectable person. I'm getting to the answer to your question. Mm-hmm. So when I acted like a rejectable person, I would just say, well, just forget it then. I don't even like you. Like that, well, I don't even want to be your mother. All this stuff started coming up, which actually sounded just like my mother. This was the scary part. It was like, oh, that's what was going on, right? So I thought, okay, I'm going to give you a practical way. I got to find a way to do this. So what I came up with, I have a practice called the safe seat. And if you'll look over in the chat, there is a link. Everybody, please, if you sign up for that, please, you'll be able to get a free gift. It's the safe seat practice, but it's also some other things that I'll be talking about today. I created the safe seat for me. And I want to tell you the metaphor that it came from. So has anybody here played the game of tag before? Or have your children played tag? Everybody know that game? pretty well, right? So in the game of tag, when children are playing, right, especially when they're really young, they're running around and they're having the best time ever. They're screaming and they're like, ah, this is so much fun, until they're about to get tagged. And then what happens?
Start like feeling afraid.
They freak out, right? And they lay down on the ground. Someone lay down on the ground. They'll go, I'm done, I'm done. And some will run off the field. Another one will hit the tagger. So one, I love the best excuse was, I'm sick, I gotta go, right? They're, because their brain is getting a signal, even though they were just having fun a minute before, their brain gets a signal that they're in danger. Okay, they go into their amygdala, which is the lower brain here, the primal brain. Okay, so in the game of tag, what do we create?
A base, a safe spot.
Safe base. It's a wonderful game of teaching regulation, right? So we give them the rules. We say, you're going to run around, you're going to have lots of fun, but if you're about to get tagged, you can run over to the safe base and you can take a breath. Okay, so you run to the safe base and you take this breath, and the mind's going, you're in danger, you're in danger, you're in danger. But you take that deep breath, and then all of a sudden you look out, and what do you see? Once you've taken a few breaths,
yeah, like that everyone's
all the fun's out there. So you run back out again, right? And you do this over and over and over again in the game until eventually you want to be the tagger. Well, I recognized I was getting tagged in my parenting. It was really, really fun to parent until my daughter wouldn't listen to me, right? Until she wouldn't get out of the house, because I hate to be late, right? And it was not fun. I got tagged emotionally. My brain, I went into my amygdala, right? And so my amygdala perceived danger. So of course I yelled at her. That would be like the kid, hitting the tagger. Or sometimes I would just walk out the door. That was me leaving the game. I started noticing that I had all these really young strategies when my brain perceived danger. So I recognized, oh, I've got to play the game of tag in my parenting. I have got to teach my brain when I'm in real danger and when I'm not. That's how I learned I had to grow myself up, right? Because my brain, and I imagine a lot of your brains, was perceiving every time she didn't listen, every time she threw a tantrum, every time she wouldn't get out the door, every time she hit me, my brain was just like, pew, 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 right? And of course we were in the game, and of course I was doing, trying to protect myself. So this is what I mean by we didn't play the game of tag emotionally as children. When we got triggered as children emotionally and we hit the tagger, we hit our parents, or we ran off the field, what happened to us? Was there a safe base to go to?
No. Well, I suppose it could feel, a timeout could maybe feel like a safe space, but unlikely for a child.
Exactly. So for me, timeouts is like, your kid's stressed, they hit you, now you're stressed. Now you tell them to go get safe so you can get safe so you can be a good parent.
Oh my God, I did it again. Sorry. It keeps like the person who's speaking is like just above you. So it's just that like
we're sending you to the timeout corner. Pooja. You're just helping me out here, honey. That's all. You're just helping me.
I apologize.
So you can see,
I apologize. Okay.
But feel that, even you, just I work with you right now. Just feel what happened in your brain. Right. And then you're like, I'm sorry. Right. Because your brain, you're going into your primal brain now. And if you don't have a safe place to go that can go, oh, I just laugh. You're like, oh God, I did it again, Leslie. Right? Because that's years of me practicing. Then the brain starts going, sorry. And then you never want to feel that feeling again.
Yeah. So
then you're going to organize your whole life to try to never make mistakes, to never mute anybody. Right? And then it gets really painful because you're suffering. You're so rigid. You're always like trying to do the right thing. Right? This is what happened to all of us. And then we're trying to do the right thing as parents, right? We get so rigid. So that was a perfect example of, you know, I hope you're
I'm glad I
okay
could
with me
provide
using
it.
you there. So we're going to just offer you sweet kindness. Of course, I would say to you, well, of course you muted me because it was right next to yours. No big deal. You're just helping me out, right? And just feel how you just calm. So I just become a safe base. I said, of course,
Mhm.
you didn't do that on purpose. Yeah.
So the
Right?
safe space is not a place. It is like,
Yes,
is it that like
it is a place.
okay, it is. And so one is, so I would love to get just like a little bit more, yeah, maybe into
Yeah.
the nitty gritty of that. Like, is it a spot? Is it like, how do you train yourself to like tell yourself that line, whether it's like you start with, you know, like laughing or whatever that is, you know,
Right.
maybe this
Yeah.
is revealing the kind of person I am already, but just like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'd love to know more about just, you know, how you start to integrate that.
Absolutely. And I'm going to guide you a little bit through it, but then please go ahead and sign up for the Safe Seat because it's a 5-day process where I walk you through the whole process. I give you more information. But for me, it had to actually be a physical place. I
Mm.
need it. Now I don't need it. I can do it just instantly inside of myself after years of practice. But I created my safe base on the couch. It was in the middle of the action. This is not a meditation seat. You don't want to go away. The child will feel rejected and abandoned. They'll come after you. It'll be worse. My daughter would beat the door down in the bathroom if I tried to do it in there, right? So you're going to want to do that. You don't want to leave the game. That's the whole point of the game of tag. You don't leave the game. So the safe seat becomes a place where most of the action takes place. As I say, mine was on my couch.
Mm.
And the hardest thing to do, or I will say the best thing to do, is to set yourself up just like we set the children up in the game of tag. We tell them the rules at the beginning. We say, okay, you could tell yourself this every morning. You could say, okay, we're getting ready to play. We're going to have a fun day today. We're going to have so much fun. You know, got this plan. We're going to go here. We're going to do this. It's all you. You haven't asked the children, but that's okay because it's all your game. It's all about you anyway. You're the parent, right? So you got this great day plan and it's going to go. And then you get up and you go into your room and you go, hi, honeys, wake up. And your kid spits at you, right? Or they throw the pillow or something, right? I mean, this is how my day was, right? I had it all planned. Boom, I'm tagged. Okay. In that moment, I had to tell myself before I woke up that when you get tagged, this is what's going to happen. You're going to go to your safe base, Leslie. You're not going to keep playing the game. You're not going to hit the tagger. You're not going to run off the field. You could, but I had to set myself up right from the very beginning. It's like, okay, you think the game's going to be fun, and it is. You're going to run around the field. It's going to be so great. She's going to go along with you. And then at some point in the day, you are going to get tagged. And when you do, it's the rules of the game. And for me in parenting, instead of doing all those things that are habitual, you're going to practice. Okay, we get another chance, Pooja. We can do it.
Do the right one this time.
So I had to tell myself, you're going to do it 1 out of 10 times. You're going to go to your safe base.
Mm.
Okay. Now this means ignoring behavior unless it's dangerous. And when a kid spits in your face, it's really hard to ignore. Add a spitter, add a hitter, because the mind, right? And it's coming from the amygdala. When the mind perceives it's in danger, it tells you, I can't let her get away with that.
Mm.
Right? Everybody got that one?
Mm.
I can't let her get away with that. So then we give ourselves permission to hit the tagger, or we give ourselves permission to, do whatever we do there. So I had to get clear on that. My daughter was not trying to threaten me. My daughter was playing the game of tag also, and she was getting tagged by me just by waking her up in the morning. That was a tag for her. Right? And so until I learned I had a safe base, I couldn't teach my daughter how to have a safe base in her and how to regulate.
Mm.
Right? I was teaching her how to overpower by yelling at her, timing her out, consequencing her for her behavior. I was teaching her to do exactly what I didn't want to do.
Mm.
So that's where it came so personal. I realized I've got to show her that when I get tagged, I can take myself to a safe base. I can regulate. You'll learn more in the safe seat process, how to talk to yourself. I talk to myself really sweetly, so kind. and I'm regulating my own being. So just like when we look back out, when I get back into my adult, I can look back out and go, oh, my daughter just got tagged and she's only 4. She doesn't know that there's a safe base. Huh. Oh. And then if I want to be the safe base, which I did, I wanted to be the safe base, I had to take personal responsibility for me tagging her. Right. And that was really huge when it shifted for me to realize that every time she acted out, I could ask myself, was I pushing? Was I pulling? Was I forcing? Did I have an agenda? Was I tagging her? Because it's so much fun being the tagger. And then that's when I went to the deeper level. It's like, oh, she doesn't hit me unless she's feeling tagged. So what did I do to tag her? So then I began to learn my daughter's vulnerabilities and her sensitivities in the game of tag. Right. And so instead of tagging her all the time and then punishing her for doing the behavior that was her wisdom base, because she was feeling in danger, so she was hitting. So instead of teaching her that her behavior was inappropriate, I began to recognize, oh, I could parent to my daughter's vulnerability and sensitivities. And each of your children have different ones, right? If you're a gardener in the garden, each plant has different vulnerabilities and sensitivities. And so you're very smart. If you want to be a good gardener, you learn those. You don't try to force the plant to grow for you. If it's a shade plant, you don't put it in the sun and get pissed off at it because it doesn't grow, because you want it to grow in the sun. Right? If you're a really good gardener, you recognize the sensitivity and the vulnerability of the plant that you have, the child that you have, and you begin to create an environment that is safe, that is supportive. But I had to do that for myself first. I had to find out my vulnerabilities and my sensitivities. And I had to start reparenting myself toward those.
Yeah, and I noticed that you said a couple times that, like, so at first you said that your aim was to just do this 1 out of 10 times in the day. And so I guess, like, what was that journey to, starting that? Like, what was the journey to starting that and kind of making that a habit for yourself?
Well, I would say the very first thing is to set yourself up in the morning. Go ahead and tell yourself the rules of the game, right? How the day's going to go. You're going to have fun a lot of times, right?
Yeah.
But there's going to be other times you're going to get tagged. Just go ahead and tell yourself. It's telling the younger part of you. The amygdala is the primal brain. It's the more young part of us, right? That just, like anybody knows, when you just get activated and you can't help it, you yell. That's not you. That's not you with your frontal lobes intact and you being your adult. That's when you're in your primal brain, right? And we've all done it, right? Haven't you all screamed at your kids and gone, who was that? I swore I would never do that, right? I was like a screaming Mimi. I didn't ever abuse hit my child, but I would get so crazy. I would just be like, ah, and I'd be running out of the room toward the bathroom. And I was like, who is that person? So it's really, really important that you set yourself up. That would be the first step I would say for everyone. Go ahead and choose a seat to begin with. Get the download so you can walk through the process. And then show yourself, show the little part of you. I call them walk by sittings. You take that little one just like you would in the game. You would say, honey, here's the tree. And you take a 4-year-old and you say, this is where you come if you're about to get tagged and you get scared. Do you think they go there the first time? No, they freak out, right? And they do their whole thing because they can't even think that there's a tree when their brain is going. So then we maybe stop the game or we help them when they're little. We keep showing them, right? Or the big kids, sometimes they'll say, go to the tree, or they'll follow the big kids because everybody's running around the tree. We learn from each other. That's why I love being here with you. I learn through groups. I teach groups because we learn to be safe and play the game together. But number 1, pick your seat. Number 2, tell yourself in the morning that you're going to get tagged and let that part of you know when you get tagged, instead of acting out, this is what you can do. And then that became my number one discipline. I just practiced it probably for a good year. That just became my number one discipline, was to try to get to my safe seat. Anytime I recognized, you'll learn in the safe seat process, I teach you about triggers. You'll start to recognize, mine, I had heat come up, like a flush of heat, and just, and it's really hard to stop that movement, right? So I would just practice. So I say 1 out of 10 times, right? Because 9 times out of 10, it was so habitual, I couldn't stop it. But every time I did do it, I would still go to my safe seat and offer myself kindness.
So after,
because it wasn't me. Yeah, it wasn't me, the adult, that was doing it. It was me, the terrified child. And so if I could offer my own terrified child, love and kindness, then I could perceive that my daughter, when she acted out, was a terrified child. So then, instead of controlling her behavior, I started becoming a safe base for her. Right? When I started perceiving through my heart, I would go, oh, she's perceiving that she's in danger. I'm not saying it's appropriate, her behavior, but her perception, and usually the danger was me. The way I was approaching her, because it was all about me, really. Parenting's about 85% of it. It's all about us anyway. Right? So if I learned in my safe seat, if I could take care of me and make it about me, with me, then as an adult, I could actually begin to, as I say, parent to my daughter's vulnerabilities and sensitivities.
Yeah. So then we got this question in the chat where it says, like, so you've woken up let's say you've woken up your child, you've tagged her by accident. You've sort of practiced your safe seat. You've been able to do that. And then what? Like, what's the next step?
Well, it's so beautiful. You will be amazed what happens, right? Just even in you going to your safe seat, you will sit there, you will do the process, and I'll walk you all the way through, and you talk to yourself, and then you come back into your adult. And then from your adult stance, you will go meet your child. You will meet your child as an adult. You might go in and you say, oh, sweetheart, that's really hard when I come in and I just turn the light on like that. Wow, that's really, because it's a sensitivity for this child, maybe. Wow, let's talk about it, because we got to get up in the morning. What do you think is a good idea? How might we do that? I mean, we have some kids, my daughter's a morning person. No problem. She never had a problem getting up, going to school, doing her thing. Some kids are night kids, and it is hell to try to get them up in the morning. Anybody got one of those? Right? But if we don't parent to that sensitivity, like to support them, the next level of my work is really about, I want my daughter to know herself, not to know me. Right? I really want to ask her good questions. That even at 2, I can do that. It's like, well, what do you think? What do you know? I notice when the light comes in that you go like this. Like, wow, what do you think you need? What if we put a little thing over your eyes and then I come and touch you? Let's try that. How does that work? So when we're in our adult brain, we have all this creativity. We have all this, we have our hearts, we have our sensitivity. We're good gardeners. Because if that plant always gets light in the afternoon and it burns the leaves or whatever, what are you going to do? You're not going to try to make the plant not be sensitive and do what you want it to do because you're in a hurry. If you're a really good gardener, you put something over the plant, right? And then it can grow. So once we take care of ourselves, and we do, and this takes a while, I tell people to grow ourselves up because it's hard. It's really humbling to realize that we're, adults walking around in 4-year-old emotional bodies. As I say, when I'm triggered, I am not a parent. Right? I have no business parenting when I'm triggered. If I've been tagged, I try to get the hell out of there. I have no business parenting at that moment. Right? Just like your child has no business driving the car when they're emotionally, crazy. Right? If they got big emotions, do not give them the power. It's crazy. Right? They have no business. They will drive the car. I will try to parent a
Mm,
place,
mm,
but it is not cool because I'm not parenting. My daughter's actually the parent at that moment, right? She
mm,
has more of the power. So the main thing is just remembering the first work. And I will be honest with people, it took me a good 2 years because I had been so habituated the other way, right? It took me 2 years of really practicing this, having support. That's why I support people to do this, because it's not overnight. I know you're probably all loving this. You maybe have never heard this, and you're probably all going, yes, 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 let me get off and do this. And it's not that easy. Jess, are you on here?
Yeah, I have a little bit of an input. In my
Yeah.
experience, that I would go from the activation or the trigger to my behavior in a split second. When I implemented my safe seat, you'll notice, or like at least my experience was, there was a lot there. So you slow that moment down, and then there's just all of these things before you that in the past took 1/2 split second before I was reactive with my kids. And then to really unpack that moment is the safe seat, but there was so much to explore there.
Yeah.
mm.
And you actually said you started the work and you kind of backed off because you didn't have enough support, right?
There was a lot
Was
to
it?
explore. Yeah, it was really about the support piece. Because you discover like the younger one in you that is vulnerable, that had to just go underneath for so long. And what I noticed, like I was just thinking when you were talking about how when people would meet my kids, earlier on in my parenting, like, oh, you have such wonderful kids. They never make a noise. They never, and that was like the extent to which my control was like, like, and so it looked cute and beautiful and pleasant, but really the amount of control that I was teaching them to never have, their emotions or their, their wisdom,
Their sovereignty.
their sovereignty, right? So once I allowed myself to, or once I supported myself in the safe seat to start to feel those younger vulnerable feelings, it got a little wild. Like it got a little, I don't know. Yeah, it kind of got a little messy. Then my kids started showing me theirs, right? And just holding that safe space for myself and then also them. And now, yeah, I guess I've been in the work now for 4 years. Yeah.
Yeah. If you feel comfortable, would you mind sharing like a story, like a specific story of like a time when you were able to go to that space and kind of how you felt, and maybe like any support that you maybe got in the process?
Yeah. Okay. Well, first of all, my first
thing is Jess has 5 kids.
That's true. Should preface that.
She's a master now.
Practice. Yeah. My walk by sittings at the very beginning were really powerful. Like just to even establish safety was such a dynamic move in my life personally. So that really had nothing to do with my kids. And just kind of revealed to me that there was this deep tenderness that I had been overpowering for probably my entire life. So that in and of itself, to establish some safety for me in my life, was just huge. So that's one example that didn't have to do as much with my kids and activation, but just so important in my process. And then I use my safe seat all the time, and small activations during the day, just noticing. One of the practices that we learn in Purejoy is that if we do have a reactivity, then we come back to the kids and say, oh, I just forgot to love myself. Like if for a moment, like something came online and I just, I forgot, I don't have to apologize to the kids. They don't have to apologize to me. This is just like something in me arose and I needed to take care of myself and I didn't. So I use it like that, but so there's just daily little things where it's like, whoops, I'm going to go take care of myself for a minute, or and sit down where they know I sit down. And so they kind of, we're used to it now. It's part of our life. But more recently, especially since I went through the Purejoy Parent Coach training, that was a deeper layer of the process and the practice. And my teenagers, I have 2 boys who are 17 and 15, and they I was a different parent when they were a little tiny. I would have, like, if they showed me a big feeling, I would have been like, yeah, like, we don't do that, here, because I wasn't willing to feel my feelings, so I couldn't be available for theirs either. So they've even said to me, like, and now I have 3 other little ones, and they're like, Mom, we never would have gotten away with that when we were kids. And I was like, I know, right? Like, how is that for you? And I also, kind of, we go along that, like, I wouldn't be this mom I am to teenagers if I didn't go through this process too. But that my teenagers are going back to those little tender ones inside of them, it makes me even think, and being able to say, like, hey, Mom, you weren't really there for me when I was this age and this age. And I can say to them now, like, yeah, how was that for you? And they tell me, like, I didn't like that. But I can be here for you now. Like, I'm safe now because I'm safe for me. So I don't have to take it personally. And we can just walk together through those old times where I was reacting on them and just throwing them back that tag, like, tag, you're it, tag, you're it. It's like phone tag, right? So what a beautiful process now. Those are just a couple of different ways that my safe seat supports me now.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And actually there's a couple questions that are sort of related to that.
See that?
Just come in the chat. So, I mean, Leslie, if you see them, maybe you want to take them on.
I have a couple here that I'm interested in addressing. What someone said, you said to ignore behavior unless it's dangerous. And why is that? The reason being is that we are so focused on good behavior in this culture. So when I am triggered, right? So let's say my daughter is a big, like, it's no person. I'll just give an example. Even today, it's like I'm doing a webinar. She's like, I'm going to get some food, and and I just like, oh, I just need an hour. All this stuff comes up, right? And I just feel so rejected, right? I get triggered because I'm like, I just need an hour, and I just made you food and this, that, and the other. Can't you just give me an hour? So what comes up? I get activated. I get triggered, right? So if I yell at her, right, and try to control her behavior, like telling her, you can't treat me like that and you need to stay in your room, instead I ignore the behavior, because some of us would say that's a disrespectful behavior, right? That she's like, well, I'm not going to close my door or whatever. How dare you disrespect me? Okay, now I'm triggered because I just got tagged, right? And now I just want to tag her back, like, you gotta talk to me like that. So I ignore the behavior because it's not a dangerous behavior. It's because she got tagged by me. I didn't give her ahead of time. I didn't tell her I was going to be on this webinar, right? Because I work all day. So I didn't tell her that this one was important. She's used to coming in and out, right? So she felt tagged when I said 10 minutes before, you need to stay in your room. Don't you tell me what to do. And then I felt tagged when she told me she wasn't going to stay in her room, right? So I ignore the behavior on both parts, mine and her. I don't focus on the behavior. I just immediately go and I sit down, because I was getting ready, and I just sit in my seat. And I start to go, okay, there it is again. I'm feeling rejected. And I talk to myself, I say, oh, honey, of course you wanted her to be nice. And of course you wanted her to just say, yes, Mom, I'll be happy to stay in my room. And of course you wanted her to understand. I mean, I just talked to this little part of me, and she's going, yeah, why won't she do something for me? Because I always do everything for her. I'm just, oh, honey. And I'm just loving on her. She said, no, honey, it's hard. It's okay. It's okay. And then she starts to calm because I'm safe. I'm at the tree. And then I come back into my adult self, and then I can go, oh, she felt tagged because I didn't give her ahead of time. Isn't that interesting? So then I can walk back in the room and say, oh, sweetheart, I didn't give you very much notice about that webinar, did I? Wow, I forgot. I just forgot. I'm sorry, I just forgot. And I go vulnerable. I say, it's really important to me, and I know you need food. And I'll be happy to get it for you afterwards, but the webinar is really important. I got a lot of people in there. I need to be quiet. Would you be willing to, stay in your room? Sure, Mom. Because now I'm vulnerable and it's about me. I took responsibility. I tagged her. She tagged me. So I don't have to address the behavior. I don't have to say, you were disrespectful. You don't talk to me like that. Well, I want her to talk to somebody like that if they tag her, some guy or girl that, is rude or just does something to her. So that's why we ignore the behavior. The behavior is a symptom in a way of the core. So if I go to my core, then I can really understand my daughter's behavior. And I can take personal responsibility for my part in that behavior because I'm the adult. So people say, well, why would you do that? Because I'm the adult. Right? I was the first tagger. And then I can take responsibility, and then she can relax because I'm safe. So that was one. And then the other one I wanted to address was, how does the safe seat work with one child is physically hurting the other and you have to physically keep them separated? This one's a hard one. I really support parents in safe seating a lot ahead of time around sibling rivalry. We mostly have a lot of stuff in ourselves around sibling. We usually identify with a perpetrator and a victim, depending on what we felt like we were when we were children. And so it gets very, very emotional for us. So I support parents in really working that, because when children are fighting, you really have to be a referee. Can you imagine the referee in a match with two fighters? If they get triggered, it's going to be a disaster, right? So those referees have practiced a long time. I'm sure they still get activated when they got to pull the guys apart. Think about a bar fight, and when you try to pull guys apart, they don't go, thank you very much for pulling us apart, right? They're like, so you're gonna get activated, but you practice, right? And you own your activation, you own your piece. You find out, did I feel like a victim or a perpetrator, and where do I get emotionally caught up, right? And then I want to tell this one, you can't treat your sister like this, and you need to do this. So if we safe seat and we practice, then we can give our kids the rules, give them the ground rules. I know you're playing, you're having fun, you're having a great time until you're not, right? Then when they get a little emotionally over the stress tolerance, that's when they go after it. So you can then say, when that happens, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to come in between you. I'm going to separate you. I'm going to say, you go to your corner and you go to your corner, and come back and play when you're ready, right? But you have to practice that. Like, that's what the referee does. He calls the whistle, and he sends one to his corner, and he sends the other to his corner. He doesn't go over and start telling, you were supposed to stop. Do you believe that? I can't believe you did that to him, and you need to stop that. And how dare you? No, He just knows when they're over their edge. He calls the fight. He knows, because they're having fun. They're loving, they're boom, 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 boom. And then one of them goes over, he calls it. And he has to go in, and he's going to get charged. You cannot, when that energy, it's going to come into you. But he knows his job. He's the adult. And he goes, break it up, go to your corners. Take a rest, go get to your safe seats, calm yourselves, and then come on back and have fun. Right? So.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. And Tracy had another question just now around, what if your child follows you to your safe seat, and how you can manage it with your child there potentially.
Yeah, this is the hardest one, because we think the safe seat is getting away from our children, and they should get the memo that they should give us a space. All the kids go to the safe base, and not one kid gets to go to the safe base. I mean, everybody runs, when you play tag. So you just bring them in with you, you just sit them on your lap. I mean, as long as you're knowing you're going to the safe base, why wouldn't you want your child to come to the safe base with you? Right? So you just sit them on your lap, but you just say, I'm going to the safe base. I'm going to my safe base. You want to come? Come on, we're going to sit here. And it's beautiful, because then you're at your safe base, that you become a safe base for the child, right? But if we think, again, we're trying to get away, we're running out of the game. We want to get away, right? And so many people talk about this, Go ahead, Jess, you were going to say something?
That's baby Sophie down there, and I know her, so I just saw her pop on the screen. I was like, oh, it's
so it's really important, that we realize we're not trying to get away from our children. We're not trying to get out of the game. I mean, many of us feel that. That's one of our strategies. That was one of my strategies. I'm just out of here. Just forget it then. Or I rescue or I abandon, right? Those are two of my strategies. Instead of just staying right in the center. Oh, look at that cute one. I want her. Hi, honey. Could you ever imagine her being threatening? Right? When we're in our adult, we could never imagine that face being threatening. when we're in our emotional brain and we feel threatened because we go really, really young, right? And we don't know how to grow ourselves up. So when we come into our adult, I can tell you parenting is just yum, yum, yum. You actually don't even feel like you're doing much. Jess will tell you that too. The kids, you know, then you become this great curious person, like, how are you doing? And I assume that my daughter wants to be safe. She wants to love herself. She wants to be successful. And from that assumption, I can just turn it all over and say, do you feel safe? Do you feel connected? Oh, there's another one. Hi, honey. So it's beautiful. The next level after a safe seed in this work is we really start to empower our children to know themselves then, not to know us. I work with so many teenagers that know exactly what their parents want for them, but then you'll ask them, what do you want? And they'll go, I don't know. Because they've subordinated who they are and what they want. They haven't been, you know, they haven't grown in the garden to be the beautiful plant that they are.
And then so this kind of brings me to, I mean, I know we're like just about out of time, so let me know if anyone needs to leave, please feel free. And the whole thing will be recorded. And if you need to leave, Leslie, let me know as well.
Yeah, I'm good. I've got another few minutes.
Okay, cool. There was just like this question. So you mentioned, you know, letting your child know in advance the rules of the game. And I know there were quite a few questions before, or like on that was submitted in the registration around setting boundaries and setting limitations. So, I mean, maybe we don't think of it that way, and we do think of it as rules of the game, but like, would you mind like just putting a final
Sure.
on that?
Sure. And I have a very radical take on boundaries. Again, I don't believe children need to be limited and bound. I believe we need to set our healthy boundaries. And so when they said all children need limits and boundaries, I just, of course, I'm a contrary. And so it's like, wait a minute, that doesn't sound right. Now my daughter is limited and bound by me setting my healthy boundaries. But anytime I wanted to limit or bind her, it was because I didn't want to take care of myself. I didn't want to be seen as selfish or rude or mean or whatever, right? So in the work, and I can't go into the whole bunch, but go on my website, you'll hear more stuff on there. I have a lot of podcasts that you can listen to. And also I'm going to offer a tea time. We do these little tea times afterwards. You'll get an email from me. If we can get the list, everybody can go to the, have a chance to come. I know, Christine, you were in one. I know a few people were in my tea times, and there are times where you can actually work with me. We do them really small, and you can actually have some contact with me. So Jess will help me figure all that out.
Awesome.
But anyway, so my boundaries, I work with, my definition of a boundary is what's okay with me and what's not okay with me about how I treat myself, not about how somebody else treats me. So I teach parents how to say, when my daughter wants something, she can ask for anything. And I can say, good for you for asking. And this is what I'm offering. So I had to learn to set my boundary instead of giving her everything so she'll think I'm a wonderful mother and then feeling resentful, or telling her she's a demanding, selfish child for asking for so much. So I see boundaries as one of the strongest functions that we need in our parenting, but we were not taught. You were taught to love others, to take care of others, to be kind to others, to do everything for others. Did anyone ever tell you how to be effectively selfish? Did anyone ever teach you that? Did anyone ever teach you how to be kind to yourself, right? Or how to love yourself, right? No, it was all about the other. So in my work, that is a huge piece to growing up, is learning how to set healthy personal boundaries. And that requires feeling. When I set a boundary, every time I set one, Pooja, I feel selfish, abandoning, and rejecting of my daughter, because I was so trained to take care of others. So anytime I start feeling that, I go, whoop, 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 whoop. I must be setting a good, healthy boundary.
Yeah, like reframing those instinctive feelings. That's exciting. So I know we're just about out of time. First of all, Leslie, thank you so much. And thank you for offering the safe seat and for offering the tea time. We'll make sure that we send out this recording to everyone who's on this call and whoever registered for the event as well. And also send those two opportunities as well, so that you're able to follow up with Leslie directly if that's something that you want to do as well. But I just can't thank you enough. And that was I know that I've heard this before, and I'm also like feeling like an epiphany. So really, really appreciate the insight, Leslie.
Yeah,
That
Jess has
never-
one every time. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. I was like, you just keep getting surprised all along the way. That's how it is. So.
Awesome.
Thank you all for being here. I just adore you all, and I'm right there with you in these challenging times. I know it's stressful, and of course you're all acting out. Of course you are. Why wouldn't you?
One last bit of
offer kindness. Yes.
Yeah.
And offer kindness. Just such kindness. Everybody's acting out right now. We've got to offer kindness. We've got to stop attacking ourselves and self-aggressing, right? So that's my final thing, is I give you all a big hug, a big, kindness blanket to wrap around you, and reach out, come hang out with us.
And you will have Leslie's contact information after this, so you can. Okay, awesome. Thank you, everyone.
All right, sweethearts.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.